Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Lab Podcast. Today I am joined by Seth and Cal, and we are talking about things like balance, how to find it or not. Maybe. How are you guys doing? What's new? What's going on with you in your life? You know.
Howdy, folks. Life is good. I feel like I'm getting stronger, and I'm in a health phase, so I'm pretty stoked about that. How are you doing, Seth?
That's awesome. I also experienced a strength increase, and I think it was because I did get a little boo-boo, and I took a little bit of a break and did some lighter weights. And this week, I am just like, dang, this is lighter and easier, and that's exciting. Just feeling a lot stronger. So I think I just needed a little bit of a break.
Nice. A little deload situation.
Yeah.
How you doing, Cody?
Intentional.
Good. Still in prep mode, so just excited to see where we go and how things unveil. I don't know how they reveal themselves. Unveil. I can't speak anymore. I just started. This is not prep brain. This is just my brain. So it's gonna get worse. Gotta up the Ritalin intake.
I was gonna say the Ritalin's real trying, right? Like it's the evening.
Yeah.
Same.
So yeah. So balance.
No, we're not talking about balance
Oh,
yet.
shit.
He's excited. That's his favorite thing to talk about is balance and how much he loves
It's
it.
true. How much I love it so much.
Term.
So we were also wanting to discuss a little something called Peter Pan syndrome. I feel like this is something Seth and I have discussed a few times. I feel like, or in passing a little bit, but yeah. Seth, would you like to start us off with this?
You're like, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, so it's a phenomenon and it's controversial, but sometimes there are people who, I think, in an effort to sort of extend what they didn't get to experience as far as a boyhood into adulthood, and acting and trying to present as, in a lot of ways, a child. Or a young person, I guess, when you're older, and sort of what that can lead to as far as the perspective that can either give you from, I guess, an external point of view of like, hey, it's cool that, you want to explore that, but I think sometimes people can pursue aesthetics and looks that are specific to prepubescent boys or young people in a way that I think can be concerning from a mental health perspective. I think we all kind of have that point of trying to reclaim that boyhood that we might not feel validated in. But yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say it. It gives me the creeps. I'm gonna say it.
I don't know if anybody. Can you describe what one would look like? Like, what do you mean when you're saying?
Real carefully here. It's hard. You know it when you see it. I think it's like here's a good example. Someone wants to start testosterone, but they want to cherry pick when they cannot what those effects will be. Say they don't want to they want to be flat-chested, but they don't want to lose their hair, or they don't want their voice to drop a certain point, or they don't want acne, or basically things that testosterone is going to do to you, whether you like it or not. Basically pick and choosing an aesthetic that is not attainable for someone who has gone through any kind of puberty.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah. It's almost like the choose your own adventure transition line, but you can't really choose your own adventure. It just happens. I think I feel like every trans man, from experience, you kind of go through it at the beginning of your transition because you present younger than you actually are. So I think it's hard because you go from like looking pretty young, like way younger than your actual age, But then it progresses pretty quickly. Like then you pass the threshold of like your boyhood, and within like a year or two, and you go straight into manhood. And I think a lot of people just aren't really ready for that yet, or they don't want to be perceived as male. It's almost like they only want to be perceived as a boy, but life doesn't work that way. And it's like, unfortunately, we can't get that boyhood back, and eventually you gotta grow up, right? So it's just kind of like, eventually as you transition, if you decide to go on hormones, I mean, I think there's some people who end up stopping because of this, because they realize, oh, I don't want to actually be perceived as a man. I just didn't want to be perceived as female. So what do you want to be perceived as, right? So I don't even know if it's a conscious thing. I think there's a lot of subconscious things around it. And, there are certain times where you do want to experience a little bit of the boyhood you missed out on or whatever. But some people just you get stuck there and you never move forward with it. And that's when it's a little weird.
I just realized that I failed to really define why it's called that, though. I'm sure most people can read between the lines, but just to be explicit, Peter Pan, Neverland, never growing up, looking like it. That's for anyone who didn't. And that's not just specific to trans people. I think there are adults like this, and at least in our case, and I really only feel comfortable talking about it in terms of trans men in this case, or trans masculine aligned trans people. There's a difference between pursuing aesthetics for aesthetics' sake and having dysphoria, And I think it's interesting to see people sort of there's a stigma on being masculine to some degree. I think people will assume certain things about you because you're masculine, and because people don't want to be perceived negatively, I think they might end up trying to, in vain, avoid the effects of their HRT in a way. But it depends on the person. All I know is that it just, I
think, too, though, just to make like a comparison, so if there's a trans woman, for example, who wanted to present as a girl versus a woman, it's a little creepy, right? But yet there's
a child
trans, like they want to be like, they wear like, just all pink clothing, and they kind of replicate maybe their sense of girlhood that they didn't really get to experience, but it just looks kind of creepy as an adult, right? People kind of notice that more. But with trans men, we kind of get away with it, I guess you could say.
It adds to the infantilization of us. I think that's why some people are like, oh, you're just a cute little guy. And then,
it's true.
It's like, I'm already like short, it's, I don't know. I think we all to some degree go through that. But and like we said, there's a time for exploration, and to each their own. But I think sometimes it can speak to a deeper issue.
Yeah,
for
Makes
sure.
Sense.
I think there's like so much more that you can evaluate or talk about it, but I feel like it's such a sensitive subject. On the same hand, it's hard not to like say the wrong thing.
I don't want to attack anyone's like gender presentation or identity. There's this it's not just a visual thing. It's not just about clothes. It's about acting like a kid.
Right.
That's like I wear what I wore when I was a teenager. I'll admit it. I wear Vans but that's different from what we're talking about here as far as like acting like a child as an adult purposefully is weird. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. That gives me nope.
Right, and I think we all have our moments where we act like children. We've done it many times on this podcast, for example.
We're talking about
but I think it's like when it comes to your responsibilities, that's when it's an issue. When you can't take responsibility for things, or you don't want responsibilities.
I'm just a little guy. I'm just a little boy. You can't expect anything out of me.
I'm just a baby. You're not.
It's weird. You're 28.
Yeah. So it's just like, But it's like this refusal to grow up, and like Seth said, it's not just limited to trans people. There's lots of people out there who kind of have. I feel like our generation specifically, maybe actually, might be a little bit more heavy in this whole Peter Pan syndrome. I also know that if you've had a traumatic past, it can get you kind of caught up. I don't know the reasoning behind it. My only explanation would just be like your childhood is so traumatic that you just like don't want to let it go, and you want a positive experience, but you'll never get it, unfortunately, because you're an adult now. So like basically you have to grieve that in order to move forward. But some people just aren't ready to do that, and it's it makes sense. It's not something that I feel like people should be ashamed of or anything. It's just this thing that exists.
Though, if you use that as like a thing to like avoid responsibilities and be a shitty person, which I do see that in people, yeah, stop it. You're an adult, but you can still have fun and have like things that you enjoy that might be more immature. But anyway, it's just so hard to describe. It's one of those things that like. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, how do you know it when you see it?
And it's a big piece of it is emotional immaturity.
Yeah, that's to me the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's just like the emotionally coping with life stressors. Like they don't have the capability to do it. Or just like acting out, kind of like a child would. Just little things like that. I feel like is like the main issue with it. So it's not like, oh, these people are awful and they're harming people. It's just kind of like, if you've ever worked with someone like this, it's really hard.
It's never been their fault in their whole life.
No.
Only things happen to them.
You guys should really check out the show Love is Blind if you want to see this in action.
Don't you watch Love is Blind?
Or The Ultimatum.
Yeah. Oh, I thought Cody did too. I thought Cody was the one who told us to watch. Okay.
No, I think it was Kel.
I'm Kel.
It was me.
Kel said it.
You're
just two guys that look just like me.
No, 90 Day Fiancé, I feel like there's a lot of that as well.
Yes.
And that's why their judgment is so cloudy when they're picking somebody to like date. It's just they feel like it's their only chance. And they have this like kind of childlike romantic type of idea of what love is. I see it more in the female people who like get scammed, basically, right? They can't differentiate between reality and like made up romance, because it's almost like they just watched Cinderella and they think that's how it's supposed to be all the time, and then they get fucked over by some guy who wants to move out of fucking I don't know, Africa. So it's just or Russia. It's a thing.
Good show. I very much enjoy 90 Day Fiancé. It's probably one of my favorite like junk shows to watch.
Yeah, same.
Not me. I'm watching Survivor right now. It's wonderful.
I didn't know they still made Survivor.
Season 42 is what I just finished.
Season 42, man.
Yeah.
I used to watch it. I didn't know they...
You would like Yellow Jackets then. It's basically Survivor.
That was the show you told me to watch. I was like, I can't remember the name of that.
Talk about that next episode.
Yeah, you guys should watch.
I'm the one who told you to watch it, Cody.
Oh, you've seen it?
I've seen them all. Yeah.
Oh, Calvin actually told me to watch it way long time ago. So you might have as well. But yeah, Calvin originally did. But yeah, have you finished it? Sorry.
Yeah, I was watching it as it came. Like we were waiting for the episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest show.
But it's so good.
It's very good because you can't. It's not realistic, but it's like it's good. So Seth, you gotta get on with the Yellow Jackets.
Okay.
There's 2 seasons though, so
yeah, gotta get going.
It takes me a while to get through TV because my brain's like, we gotta walk around now. We're like, is that so? Why do you do the... You're right.
So you just keep walking.
Just keep on trucking.
Yeah.
It has Christina Ricci and the girl from Natural Born Killers.
Which one?
I don't know who that is.
Natalie, grown-up Natalie, is Juliette Lewis.
Oh.
Yes. I'll check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then the mom, or I guess she wasn't always the mom. she, I remember her from Ever After as like one of the stepsisters.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so, but it's a good one. I don't know why it is, but it just is, and it's kind of gross, but it's
And terrifying.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so good though, because you put yourself in their shoes and you think like, what would I do?
You're right.
I just realized, because I was trying to think, I'm like, what have I been watching them lately? And I realized nothing. I just put the television on YouTube, like Rain or something, and I get stoned. I just sit there like, this is relaxing. It sounds unhinged now that I say it out loud, but it's been relaxing.
I do that currently with I watch 2020, I just keep it going. I'll fall asleep to it sometimes.
That's why you're anxious.
I know. I will have moments of where like I'm just kind of a little stoned but a little lucid, and then I'm just convinced that like I'm going to jail for something. I don't know why.
That is such a specific fear. You're like, they're coming. I don't know where they're going.
Like, I swear I didn't do it, like, because it's basically modern day forensic files, right?
2020 can get you.
It's all about murder.
Murder.
It's not the greatest thing to fall asleep to, but apparently.
Her arms were cut off. Her legs were cut off.
Right. And I swear to God, like, it's always the fucking spouse. Do you know how many less murders you would have in this country if people just stopped getting married?
Dude, me and my wife make that joke all the time. You're like, the most dangerous person in your life lives in your house. And we go, like, you're the most likely to kill me.
So true.
I know, it's so weird.
True. It's fucking scary.
It is. I'm scared of her. She's out there. Have you guys seen the movie Ted? The teddy bear, Seth MacFarlane?
I know what it is,
haven't
but I haven't seen it.
God damn it. But there's a part where they're talking about like weed strains, and they're like, yeah, this one's called Mind Rape, and then this one is called They're Coming, Please Help Me. And I'm like, that's so funny.
That's like in every strain for me.
I don't get that. I have no thoughts. Or cool ones that I get excited about when I'm stoned. I'm like, whoa, it's such a good idea. You should write that down. But there's never any paper.
Well, unless you do Delta 8 and then you just go to the hospital.
They go to the hospital!
It's not completely true.
And everyone looks like a mannequin. Well, that's not really weed, is it? No. I want the plant.
It's THC, but yeah, it's from hemp.
I'm scared of it. I'm scared. It's funny.
Well, should we go into balance?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Speaking of balance, when, you get really stoned right after you come back from the gym. Anyway.
Yeah, that's
balance.
a different kind of balance.
Yeah, a balancing act. So, Cody, I really want to hear about how you feel about balance and what it means. And Kel, but just starting from the left. I'm looking at you, the screen, like you.
Yeah, no, I think that we just have a very skewed view of what balance is, which ends up making us more stressed out than we need to be. Because we emphasize balance so much, and we tell people balance is key. I've said it before, but it's not something that you always start out with. In order to find balance, you have to be a little bit unbalanced. And, we accept this in every other walk of life except for fitness. We know that if we go to school, we're going to have maybe late nights. We're going to have a lot of studying. We might need to make sacrifices, not go out so much socially because we have to study. We have to do XYZ. Or the same thing with a job. If we want a promotion, sometimes you have to put in more hours. You have to work a little harder. You have to skip the social events. You got to do XYZ just because you're sacrificing for something you really want. This is not a point of balance. But when it comes to fitness, people just expect to be balanced from the start. And they're like, oh, I don't have to give up anything. And I'm just going to make progress by changing nothing. And it just doesn't work that way, especially in the beginning, because you have to learn. You have to learn how to maybe, track your macros, how to shop differently, how to cook, how to make a balanced meal. These are all parts of the learning process that you're going to have to focus more on. It's going to take more time. It's going to take more planning. You might have to make some sacrifices, at least during that learning period, in order to find actual balance, in the same way where, like, I could be balanced now in a way of, like, I can go, I'm on prep now, so this is different, but, like, I can be balanced now where I can go out to eat and I can kind of eyeball things and not worry about if I'm going overboard with my macros or whatever, that is basically balance. Or I could go out with some friends, eat at a restaurant and choose something on the menu that I enjoy, but not go overboard with it and not have it impact my health and fitness negatively. Like, to me, that is more what balance is. But, I've had many periods of time where I was like very unbalanced, like in prep. There is no balance in prep. It really just depends on your goals. So prep is extreme. So sometimes you go to the extremes in order to know what that is and know what balance is. But you don't just start off that way. So sorry, that was really long.
I think when I'm thinking more about balance, I'm thinking more like a pie chart. So it's kind of along the lines of what you're saying. Like, you have to have priorities, and especially at the beginning, it's a little bit trickier because it takes a lot more of your time and focus. But all of the things have to be given some amount, right? So you have to have some sort of balance in that aspect, is what I always say. And then also, balance looks different for everybody. It's not going to always look the same to each person. So balance for me a lot of times is like, I'm going to go to social events, but I'm going to pack my food, so I can still enjoy being social, getting out there, having fun, but I'm still controlling what I need to control in that way. Or planning for something. So like, I plan for one meal a week to have out and be social with. That's balance to a certain extent. So it's kind of just determining when you need to figure out how much of each thing goes in order for your equation. It's kind of hard to explain without visuals.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I feel like for me, what's easier to define is what balance is not. And I think that's where we really run into trouble. Like, on social media, I see people, talking about balance, and what they're really displaying behavior-wise is self-sabotage. In the same way that people, like, they'll be like, I was good all week and I'm going to just eat whatever the fuck I want over the weekend. People will think of that as balance, and they're like, well, I earned this. I think a lot of it is what it comes down to is between food and exercise for people when we're talking about balance from a fitness perspective. They're like, well, this is justified because of XYZ behavior. And you really just end up taking 2 steps back if you, eat an entire pizza after hitting the gym. Like, I guess that's dirty bulking if you even hit it hard enough. But I really think what ends up being is it just it's a way to justify behavior that's not helpful to you for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I think that's on point for many. In the same way, like, if say you're coaching somebody and you notice they ate out like 4 times a week, and then you say, if you want to lose some weight, probably going to have to take down eating out a bit, because we never really know how many calories are in the food, even if, the menu says XYZ, because it depends who's preparing it. But then they say, well, I thought this is about balance. I thought, I don't want to restrict myself. And then it's like, okay, but is it really balance if you continue to gain weight? Obviously, there's an imbalance there.
Yeah.
So, I think the biggest thing is, like, people have to define what balance is for themselves. If you don't define what balance is, you can just create you just go crazy and just eat. Balance could be eating out at different restaurants every day if that's what balance is for you. So yeah.
I think to me, it's like true balance, and how I would want to approach it is seeing multiple aspects of my wellness through without sabotaging other parts. Like, I don't want to sabotage my mental health for my physical health, and vice versa. You want to find something in between. Like, hey, what would support my goals right now is if I'm not feeling so hot mentally, like a workout would help balance something out. Like, that is balance. If you're taking care of your mental health and your physical health at the same time, you're helping balance the scale. I don't know. It's general wellness. But, like Cody was saying, there are going to be times where that's not going to be the most optimal choice. Like there's just going to be times in your life where shit's hard, and that's where you really need to lean on coping skills.
Right. And I do think like we're going to have seasons of our life all the time, right? And so like someone who has children who's going to be home all summer, maybe that isn't the time for them to go hard. Like if, for example, and this is like obviously for general health, it wouldn't be the same, but like if you know you're a parent and you're going to have your kids during the summer, maybe a summer show isn't a great idea for you. So that is like figuring out where your priorities are going to lie, and then you can figure out balance and making all of those work to you, right? And then you also have to take into account, like if this is really, you're not super concerned with weight loss, you're not super concerned with mass gain, you really want to feel healthy and get around a little better, then your balance is going to look a lot different than someone who does have those kind of goals. So it also plays into a big part of what your end goal is and what you love doing. Like if you love doing cardio but you really want to gain a bunch of muscle, then your balance is going to have to work out different. You're either going to have to eat a hell of a lot
so much,
or you're going to need to dial back on the cardio. So I think, it's all about kind of what it is to you personally. What is your goal, and what are your priorities? What do you love doing?
Right. And do you really want it? You know?
Good question.
Going back to things, it's like you can use balance as a way to justify things. And I think there's a lot of times they fall in love with the results, but they aren't willing to do what it actually takes to get there. So do you just want the results, or do you want to go through, I mean, I guess technically everyone would probably take the shortcut pill, but
I would like the sooner thing better. Yeah, better.
But it's just like, obviously that's not an option. So it's like, cool, you might want this thing, but are you willing to do what it takes to get there? Do you want it bad enough to do the things that it takes to get there? And I think people just have a mismatch of what they are willing to do and, what they want, I guess.
Yeah, you got to figure that out first. What am I willing to do to make these changes? Like I have people, ask me like, what should I do if I want to, I don't know, gain muscle, and just kind of just talking casually, obviously. I know them, and if their diet is like, well, I will start there, and if they're not willing to change that, then I'm kind of like, well, you're gonna hit a dead end.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And for some people, like, that is also a natural process. Like, that's something they need to go through to realize that maybe isn't what their end goal is, that maybe that wasn't their why, that isn't the answer.
You can change,
and they need to do that. But it's just kind of understanding all of what goes into a fitness journey, into your goal, and kind of understanding the path forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which all comes down to also, are your expectations in the right place? Are your expectations in line with what you're willing to do? We live in a time where we want everything instantaneously. Thanks, Amazon, but there's no prime delivery for fitness. Like, we gotta go old school, like UPS ground, but like worse. So
Pony Express.
Yeah, the Oregon Trail.
It'll be here next year if you're a good boy. Santa will come with a little sugar cube and some molasses candy.
That's gonna be hard to track on MyFitnessPal. So, it's expectations. Just make sure you know what you're getting into. It's like the best way to get disappointed is to not know what you're getting into. And so
set your expectations.
Set them real low. It's like the best way to succeed in fitness is to always just expect something is going to take way longer than you think.
You'll be pleasantly surprised.
Right. That's the best part. I feel like this is where anxiety plays an important role in our life. As an anxious person, I'm always thinking a worst case scenario, so my expectations are always super low. So when something happens that's good, I'm always like, fuck yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, listening to you, you are a huge man, be like, I think I might have 10 pounds of lean tissue in the last 3 years. I'm like, well, and when you say that, I'm like, he's planning to be pleasantly surprised. Like, that's just, hey, you can't be disappointed. It's true.
True.
It's true. It's true.
It's its own type of protection mechanism.
It is. I engage in that from time to time myself.
Fair enough.
It's not a bad place,
No. I like not being disappointed. Being disappointed sucks.
Yeah, that's true.
Unavoidable sometimes, but
Yeah.
I do think though that for balance, the major thing that you need to balance is your mental health in all of this journey, and I think that is one thing that's overlooked a lot because when you first start this shit, you're like, oh, it's just working out, it's just eating right, whatever. It's not going to get in my head. And then you start putting in work and it immediately goes to your head because it's like, okay, am I doing enough? Am I and all the questions start. So when you're doing this, just remember to keep mentally in the game and keep taking care of yourself mentally, even when you're working through your body stuff.
That's not to say that just because something is hard, it does not mean that it's bad for your mental health. Just to point that out.
Yes.
Because there's going to be times where it's going to be hard. You're going to question yourself. You're going to wonder if you could do this. That doesn't mean that it's bad for your mental health. It's just like
part of being alive.
What?
Part of being alive, kind of. Like you're gonna like.
It's just like a lot of times when people start out tracking their food, right? I feel like there's one of those justifications sometimes where. There is sometimes where, especially if someone has a history of disordered eating, where it can be bad for your mental health. And I think that was kind of created from people who have had eating disorders. And you have to gauge, like, is this a healthy thing for me? I've struggled with an eating disorder in my past. Should I be tracking my food? I'm getting obsessed with numbers. I freak out if I can't track something. That's when it gets to be bad. But if something is just hard to do, like you have to take the extra 3 minutes to track your food.
This is bad for my mental health, Cody.
So draining. Yeah, like that's not bad for your mental health.
If you feel like he's calling you out, he probably is.
I think that sometimes when people see something that they don't like because it shows what their actions have been leading up to that point, that's not. Facing your own bullshit is not bad for your mental health. It's just hard to hear sometimes. Like when you get mad at the number on the scale, that's not because it's bad on your mental health. It's just showing you the reality of maybe what your choices in the past, and it's hard to face. I'm not saying that for everybody, but there's a lot of times where people like, I can't weigh myself. It's bad for my mental health. It's just like, okay, so what I'm hearing is maybe you haven't been making the best choices or staying on track. So every time you step on the scale, it's a reminder of that. So in the same way, of course, if you've had an eating disorder in the past, is weighing yourself might not be a good idea. I'm not saying no one's mental health is affected by this scale or tracking your food. I'm just saying you don't want to use it as an excuse just because it's hard, or you don't want to face the reality. It's like you have to face the reality in order to make any changes. That's just how it goes. You have to be aware. You have to be self-aware. That's why, like in therapy will do you no fucking good unless you are self-aware. Because if you're lying to yourself, that means you're lying to your therapist. Your therapist cannot help you if it's just all lies. So face the truth, people.
Yeah, and I think it's like having honest expectations and honesty with yourself. So you're not gonna. It's that same thing about like when you're talking about like addiction. It's you have to acceptance is the first step. So you have to accept and be honest with yourself before you can start shit. So just remember.
Yeah, the truth can be hard to hear, but I think with all of that, the whole point is to build resilience, and with that, you can kind of face life, because life will require you to be resilient.
Yeah. And,
absolutely.
Truth hurts for sure. But at the same time, it should be kind of empowering because it shows that you can change. If you take responsibility for the things that are impacting you in a negative way, you can also work to change those things and then not have that be negatively impacting you. So it's kind of a win-win. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks to face the reality of your choices sometimes. But that being said, like, it's a choice that you can change. It might take some time. It's not something you can have to do overnight, but just acknowledging that is the first step to moving forward. And you don't have to be perfect. There's life's full of bad choices. Even when we make the choices in the moment, we know it's bad, but we do it anyways. But growth is acknowledging that, taking responsibility, and then making a plan to move forward. Right? So
yeah, I don't want to derail, but the mic did pick up my stomach growl. I don't know if anyone heard it.
That.
It was my stomach. Yeah, probably because I've only had 2 meals today because I'm not doing it. But the in general, I feel like people look at that and they're just like, I don't want to face that. But the reality is, like, I had that moment and it sucked. But looking back on it now, I'm like, I'm so happy that I had that moment of like, you have got to change something. And that facing of reality, even though it sucks, you will never get to where you want to go hiding from it. So don't hide behind the word balance to justify your self-sabotaging behavior.
Yes, exactly. I think that's just like the main takeaway, basically.
Yeah. Well, do you guys want to just go into the power talk? Because I think that's what we had to say about balance.
What's really cool is, and I swear I did not plan it this way, but my power talk aligns perfectly, and it's a mantra that I am living by right now in this stage of my life: is focus on what you can control. So that goes for everything, and that's not about being a control freak. It's about saying, hey, I'm in this situation, say it at work or at home or school or with your fitness journey, whatever it is, and you're just frustrated and you're looking at all these things like, I feel powerless. The minute you start to feel powerless about something, you should be looking at, okay, I have ownership over myself. What am I doing that is contributing to, say, a negative situation? Or what can I do to fix the situation? And with that, you find empowerment and you can change your life. Because without that sense of, if you're just going around in life and things are just happening to you and you feel like everybody, everything's just happening to you and everyone blames you for everything and it's all just, it's probably you, buddy. It's probably you. And start there.
Yes.
And that's okay. You deserve to have good things, and you can have those things. But the first step is to just kind of admit where you're falling short.
That's a good one, Seth.
Thanks.
Yep. I dig it. So takeaway: focus on what you can control, which is more than you probably think.
Way more than you think. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can change your life and have very little external changes. Like, it'll be you that changed, and you'll look around and you'll be like, shit, changing me changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. Cool.
All right. Well, until next time, folks.
Peace.
Peace out.